Bruins trade reports are escalating as a brand new report has revealed another deal going down with Joonas Korpisalo, this time with a very interesting suitor and return from the Edmonton Oilers. We're going to be breaking down this trade, going over what it means and why a trade seems to be imminent for the Boston Bruins here in this case with the recent signing of Michael DiPietro. We're going to be breaking it down, going over the stuff we have before as well as this brand new update with the Edmonton Oilers here in this video. Before we do jump into though, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already, and we're on the road to 8K. We just got to 7,300 with the big goal of 10K. Your support's been absolutely incredible as of late. I appreciate everyone watching these videos right now, and we're going to have you up to date with every bit of Boston Bruins news that comes out from any source that we get here in this offseason, because we know that more moves are coming. I think this is a perfect example of it, going back into this whole situation going down with Joonas Korpisalo. Now, I first wanted to pull up the trade that was projected here by Heavy.com. Now, going into this, the Bruins are acquiring Nathaniel Day, no relation to me for those who are interested, a 2028 fourth-round pick for Joonas Korpisalo. Now, this is a much more realistic deal from the ones that we've been seeing with Joonas Korpisalo's name thrown in there. A lot of the deals that we've been able to see have had, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, a first-round pick, and even a player thrown in there in some instances. And I think this is the most realistic deal that we've had to this point. We know that Joonas Korpisalo still is a okay goalie. There's a lot of teams that will be certainly looking for him. I think the Edmonton Oilers are a team in specific that are looking for that real goaltender to sit there behind Stuart Skinner and be able to even jump in for half the games in a season. And we saw last year, Joonas Korpisalo jump into quite a few. Now, definitely wasn't the right situation for him. Obviously, he wanted to be a starter. The Bruins are planning on going to the playoffs, and nothing really worked out in either team or player's favor here in this instance. But we now know the plan the Bruins are going on. They need to get rid of Joonas Korpisalo and fast. And going on to the return that would be in a possible deal with this one in specific here from the Boston Bruins, Nathaniel Day, goaltender from the Edmonton Oilers. You see there in the OHL, definitely not the best stats that we've seen. ECHL the past few seasons as well, and is a very solid goaltender. Now, you may look at his OHL stats and say, hey, this is not really the guy we're looking for. Of course, this is more so just getting a goalie in return, freeing up that space for the Edmonton Oilers, but also a younger 20-year-old goalie who has a lot of potential. And even in the OHL, which is an incredibly high offensive league, those stats are really not bad when you're comparing it and knowing what kind of teams you're coming up against and what kind of players you are. Not much defense in that league, and it goes to show that, Nathaniel Day, although he is a goaltender who didn't really see the stats that he wanted to in the OHL, has a lot of potential. And I think that goes to show in the ECHL, where you're playing against older players, a lot, probably not as talented, but it's still, you take that next level there, and we see the success. And ultimately, a fourth-round pick, adding to what the Bruins already have is a bunch of picks coming over the next 3 years, and adding more and more and more is just the most ideal situation. Now, the big thing about this trade and why it does seem like the Bruins may not be really getting a win here is just dumping the cap. That is really the big thing that we're waiting for on Joonas Korpisalo, is getting rid of that $3 million salary that he has, which is holding up the Bruins in a few assets, and where they want to go from there is the big question. And they currently sit at around $2 million in cap. If they free up Joonas Korpisalo, puts him up to $5 million. That is certainly enough money to be able to go ahead and get a borderline second-line winger. That's what their big issue is right now, and that's what they're looking for. And being able to have $5 million, although you're still probably not going to be able to necessarily get whoever you want, being able to throw another player into a trade to free up even that much more cap, any deal to get a second-line winger, would really solve a lot of issues they have here, but it really does start at the bottom in getting rid of Joonas Korpisalo. Now, I also do have a few quotes here coming down from all of the situations we have here, everything we've known so far, and this one comes from Jimmy Murphy in RG. He says, "They got calls, and I know that. A trusted NHL source told RG in April. What materializes and how far, I can't tell you, but there was some interest." And that's on multiple teams calling about Joonas Korpisalo, and we all expected a trade to be here, coming down with what he had said at the end of last season, where he wasn't happy with his games played, where he said that, what am I going to request a trade? His agent coming out and denying it. There's all sorts of situations that we've seen Joonas Korpisalo in, nearly leading to a trade that seems like it was imminent. Seemed like that was about to happen in the coming hours, but still has not yet to this point. And I want to pull up, once again, another quote coming out about all of this stuff, this time from Joonas Korpisalo, what he had to say at the end of last season, which really caused and sparked all of this debate on what's going to be happening with him in his future in the Boston Bruins organization. He says, "I don't think there's any goalie in the league who's really comfortable playing 20 to 25 games. On April 17th is when he said that, so I'm just going to push for more games. We'll see what happens. I was pretty open when I got into the season, and always, you just try to put everything you have out there, make your mark, and gain some playing time." And now, once again, coming out about this, we the first time we actually heard something about Don Sweeney coming from this was when he said this the other day. Again, Joonas was honest at the end of the year in saying that he believed he should have given him more, especially when Jeremy was struggling. And I was honest, and I didn't disagree with him. And Don Sweeney even admitting he should have gotten into more games, and this kind of throws a little bit of a question mark into the whole trade idea. Don Sweeney's the guy that's going to be facilitating a possible trade, and we know that we need a second line center. We know second line winger, excuse me. Anybody really on the second line, to be honest with you. And going in here and saying that, Joonas Korpisalo should have got more playing time, but am I going to keep him? Not really necessarily saying yes or no. It caused a bit of concern for Bruins fans, thinking that they may actually choose to keep Joonas Korpisalo on the deal he's currently on, because it is certainly not a good one. And when we go back to take a look at his stats and kind of or his playing style, he's definitely a player that needs to get more out of his game. He needs to get more wins, a better save percentage, better goals against. There's not much you can blame him for on last year with that horrible Bruins team. But coming from a team like the Ottawa Senators and going to the Bruins, you expected a bit of a bigger boost there. Same thing goes for here, especially with the way the Bruins currently stand. We don't really know where they're going to be. The Edmonton Oilers just came off 2 Stanley Cups back-to-back and should be a team better than what they're seeing right now again next season. And I feel like that kind of fits with Joonas Korpisalo and what he's trying to say. And here we go and pull up this once again and kind of going over what the goalie market is like. According to more than one source recently, the Oilers, Sharks, Red Wings, Blue Jackets, and Flyers are all teams that were seeking help in between the pipes at the deadline and in the offseason doing the same. However, last week the Sharks acquired Nedeljkovic from the Penguins and the Red Wings acquired John Gibson from the Ducks. So you take 2 teams out of that and there still are some more, and the Edmonton Oilers are still one of those teams. And it's still very uncertain if they're actually going to trust Stuart Skinner or Calvin Pickard in that, if they want to get Joonas Korpisalo, a player who, with the LA Kings in 11 games, proved that kind of goalie he could be in a very good defensive system. And I wonder if that's what the Oilers are trying to do and trying to see and trying to pull out of him in a potential trade with the Boston Bruins here in this case. Now, once again, I wanted to go over to the goaltending situation for the Boston Bruins right now. Obviously, we're set right now in net. Jeremy Swayman signed that deal. Michael DiPietro signed a deal where a lot of people thought initially after that was going to be done, that deal was signed, inked, ready to go, that Joonas Korpisalo would be out fairly soon after, and that is indeed not the case. But as you see as well, Luke Haviland acquired at the free agency from what was the Maple Leafs organization. And then, once again, it's Filip Svedback and Simon Zajac. They're both here going to be a potential suitor in the next coming seasons. But right now, of course, it is Jeremy Swayman's net. And, if you don't play well, we're going to need a backup goalie. And whether or not that is going to be Joonas Korpisalo, I think is raising a lot of questions. But I do want to pull up a few more quotes here before we finish this video off. And kind of coming here into this one with Marcus Leto, the agent for Joonas Korpisalo. This is what he had to say on the truth behind Joonas asking for a trade. He said there is no truth to that when he replied to an email from RG about the rumor that his client had asked out of Boston. So from what Jeremy Swayman was doing last year and how Korpisalo didn't get in the net, Korpisalo frustrated at the end of the season. It seems to be that he did not ask for a trade. There is no truth behind it. But when we do come and take a look at a deal like this, where the Boston Bruins are involved with the Edmonton Oilers, I think this fits both sides very, very well. Clears up the space for the Bruins, get another pick and a 4th rounder. Joonas Korpisalo going to the Oilers, where he's going to get more playing time for sure, and also would have a chance at a playoff run again next season. I think it's a perfect deal for both sides. So let me know what you think about that as well. Of course, it feels like a deal has to come at some point. We have nobody coming out about it, but we're continuing to see articles about all of this stuff. This case, the Edmonton Oilers. We've also seen multiple other teams here. So let me know what you think about that in the comments below. That is all I have here in this video, though. If you did enjoy it, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. Remember, we're on the road to 8K. Your support has been unbelievable as of late, and I appreciate every one of you guys still at this point in the video. But like I said, that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.